I'm Jeff Opdyke, and welcome to Caminha, Portugal. Population somewhere between tiny and small. This is what Portugal used to be like before it became overblown with tourists. This is basically Porto and Lisbon in super small scale. It's the very last city at the top of Portugal before you run into Spain. So let me show you around.
My name is Jen Stevens, and I'm the executive editor of International Living. I have with me here Jeff Opdyke, who is our personal finance editor. Jeff is also an expat who lives in Portugal today. We asked you, Jeff, to go north of your home in Cascais to check out a town for us called Caminha. It is in Portugal's far north along the Spanish border, and word on our insider radar here at International Living was that no one was really talking about it yet, but it was pretty extraordinary. That seemed like a place we should be putting on that radar. So we sent you up north to check it out for us, and I was very excited about your report when you came back. So I thought we would hop on here and get the lowdown. I may say that the written account appears in the December 2023 issue of International Living. We'll put the link here so people can read. But meantime, let's hear what you found out. So Jeff, I'm gonna let you do most of the talking here for the rest of this. But tell us, where is Caminha exactly? Give us the perspective.
Yeah, so it's way at the top of Portugal. I mean, it is the end of Portugal. I think it was like a year ago or so, I was at the far southern end of Portugal, and I called it, sort of the last beach in Portugal down in Sagres. This is the last, city in Portugal, last town in Portugal in the far north, because it hits right on the Minho River, and the Minho River is the one that separates Portugal from Spain. You can literally see Spain across the river, and it's right at the mouth of the river. So the river flows directly into the Atlantic Ocean. So you've got the Atlantic on one side of you, on the west side, and you've got the river to the north of you, and you have this town there, and it really is a little town. I mean, it's definitely not on normal travel radars. It's an hour north of Porto. When people want to see northern Portugal, they all go to Porto, which is great because Porto is a wonderfully beautiful little city without question. I love Porto. But when you get outside of Porto and you go to the west, these little beach communities are really pretty. They're really small. They're kind of, in some ways, they feel a little bit like Northern Ireland to me, which is kind of odd. But they really do have sort of this Northern Ireland feel in that this is the North Atlantic. The waters are kind of cold. It's not a place you'd really be going to be a swimmer, but it's a place you'd go for surfing and things like that. But then you go, just to the absolute top, and an hour north of Porto, and you are in Caminha. And there's a population there that's really small, a few thousand people, maybe 15,000, 20,000 in the entire region. But it is a little community. It's a city. It's got all the necessities you would need, and it's been there forever and a day. It was part of various empires, so it's been around a long time. It's been part of wars. It's where a lot of the Spanish fleet or the British fleet or the French fleet, when they wanted to invade, they all came through Porto basically, or through Caminha, I should say. So it's got a long history. But it's just it's a lovely little community these days. We were up there, late summer, so the summer tourist season had died, and it was really quiet. It's a nice little community, beautiful little old town, and I mean really old. It's been around a long time, and it looks a lot like a miniature Lisbon or a miniature Porto in terms of the way the design of the buildings looks, but it's really small. You could walk the entirety of Old Town, Caminha in probably a morning. I mean, it's really quite small, but it's, again, it's really a nice kind of place where if you wanted to get away from urban living, urban travel, this is the place you would go. And we had a rental car, and I was driving around, and I I would make a turn and I would swear I was back on Bainbridge Island off the coast of Seattle, in the Puget Sound area. Or I would make a turn and I would swear I was somewhere outside of Asheville, North Carolina in the mountains, because it just feels like that. It has that look to it. It is completely not urban. And it's not rural, but it's just like somebody took a tiny little Appalachian town and stuck it in northern Portugal with a bit of a Seattle vibe to it. That's the best way I can describe it.
And where did you stay while you were there? Because you said there's the town itself, but then there are all these kind of communities on the outskirts, because there's beach there. That's the other thing, like that it's not just you're on the river, but then along the coast there you've got full-on Atlantic little beach communities too, right? So where did you stay? Did you stay right in town, or were you on the beach? What did you?
Yeah, we stayed in town. There's a little hotel called Design and Wine Hotel, and it's a really nice little hotel. It's a two-story white building dead in the center of town. It's like, when you walk out the front door of this building, you are in Old Town Square. So it's right in the heart of the old city itself. The building has probably been around since, I'm going to guess, the 1700s. So it's this old stone building, but it's really nice. They've gone in there and they've really upgraded it, made it nice. It has this wonderful underground pool in the basement. They have this little small pool in the basement, and I got to tell you, what I love about this place is that when you go down there, it feels like you're just completely wrapped in this numbing warmth, because it's a heated pool, but it's inside a basement, so it's all closed off, and you walk in and it's like this giant warm blanket just surrounds you, and you sit down and the first thing you want to do is go to sleep. So it's just, I like that hotel for that reason, because it is so relaxing by that pool. But you're right. You're really close to the ocean. And in fact, you could walk to the ocean. It's probably a 15 or 20-minute walk, and you are, on where the mouth of the river and the ocean meet. We had a rental car, so we drove probably 15 or 20 minutes, maybe less than that, maybe 12 minutes, to another little town, and I'm completely blanking on the name at the moment. But it's a little beach community, and it's got this long stretch of sand, like just monstrously long stretch of sand. And it's, right there on the ocean, great little seafood cafes all over the place. When we were there, it was sort of crowded, but not like, overcrowded. It wasn't like some of these communities, when you're in the Algarve down south, those places can get really packed because they're so popular.
Right.
This is a beach community that is really only popular with locals. You don't get a whole lot of travelers, a lot of tourists going through there, other than Spanish tourists from the region or the local Portuguese tourists. But this whole coast is just lined with little beach communities that feel a little bit like, again, like I said, Northern Ireland to some degree, but in an American context, it would almost be like little beach communities you would find in Northern California circa 1950s, let's say. So you've got that sort of feel, that vibe to it. And they're really nice places to walk around. Again, they're really small. You're not going to spend days at these places, because there's just not going to be a lot to do unless you just want to sit on the beach every day for a week or whatever. But they are the kind of places where you would pop in, you would probably stay for the night. You'd have some really good seafood meals, and you wander around to the shops and everything, and everything's going to be local. There is not going to be any kind of chain store kind of stuff, other than maybe supermarkets. So everything's going to be really local. But again, they're just really nice places to go and relax and get away from the traditional Portuguese tourist crowd.
And I had looked just the other day, I was writing something, I don't know what I was writing, something else random, but out of curiosity, I went and looked at just sort of some real estate up in that area. And both in those little beach towns, there are homes for sale. There are like little villas that are great value. Frankly, I want to say they were around, anywhere from 300,000 to 500,000 for like a 4 to 6 bedroom, like very nice villa with a water view kind of thing. Or you could do a little sort of townhome right inside one of those villages with a water view, but just an old historic place for, closer to like 100,000, maybe even less. So, the values were pretty extraordinary. And I think that held true in Caminha as well. I don't know how much time you spent looking at real estate.
Yeah, no. So my wife and I were actually, so we were driving around. I was like, man, I could live here. I really liked it that much because, again, it's the quietness of being away from urban living, and it's incredibly beautiful. Like I said, it really is like somebody took, the best of Puget Sound and the best of the Appalachians and sort of shoved them together on a river and an ocean. But when you're in the city itself, there's a couple of ways to think about the real estate that's available up here, and it's affordable, but it is going up in price because
Yeah.
the Portuguese are beginning to show up there to buy weekend homes and things like that, or turning them into Airbnbs, because this place does see tourists in the summer for sure, but it tends to be the Spanish and the local Portuguese tourists and some of the Europeans who are in the know, and it's not a whole lot of Americans who show up there. But we were looking at real estate as we were driving around and sort of contemplating, could we live here, et cetera. And yes, I could live there. I would love to live there. But I did some research on my own as well. And if you are in the city itself, if you're in Camino itself, you can buy properties there that are literally from the 1700s, 1800s, that are these beautiful stone properties, and they need to be gutted because nobody's taking care of them. It's
Right.
clear that they've just sort of been abandoned for decades. And you can get some of those for in the $100,000 range, 125,000. If you were to put the equal amount in that, another 100,000 into it or 125 in remodeling, you'd have a $250,000 property that would sell for probably $400,000 or $500,000, because they really are very beautiful. The buildings themselves, the locations where they are very beautiful. It's really feels old world Europe, old world Portugal. This is what Portugal was before Portugal became a tourist attraction. So there's that kind of real estate opportunity. But outside of the city itself, when you start going into, I'll call it the suburbs for lack of a better term, but it's really just sort of smaller communities all along the way. You can find modern properties, I'm going to say, that were built from, the 1970s through the 2010s. And you're going to find those in 2 and 3 bedrooms, some of them with a decent amount of land attached to it. And they're going to be anywhere from $200,000 to $350,000, depending on what you're looking for. And a lot of them are really quite nice. There's some that clearly need updating inside, but there are some where I would just move in a heartbeat. And they're really, really nice. Giant glass windows out looking over the either the ocean or more likely the river. They're all within walking distance of the river. It's just, it's a really, really nice place. So I would love to live up there.
Nice. And so you as you've kind of said, you came home really excited. We were excited. We're always excited when we send you someplace and you come home like, this is great. So can you give us, just so we could kind of maybe summarize for people, like maybe we could tick through some of the takeaways, like what are the reasons, whatever number you want to give, that you think this is sort of Portugal's next spot to be paying attention, that people should be paying attention to?
There's a few things. It's because it is a beautiful place. If you want raw beauty and you want to be outside of an urban destination, this is a place to go, because it really is, I keep saying it really is sort of somebody took parts of Seattle and parts of the Appalachians and shoved it together. So it's got that vibe to it. And I like that a lot. I mean, that world appeals to me. That environment appeals to me. That said, it does get rainy and cold up there, very much like a Seattle lifestyle. So you've got to be accustomed to that. I love that. I lived in Seattle, so it's fine with me. The surroundings, when you get outside of Caminha and you go into the beach communities, you go into the interior rural communities, you drive to the east along the communities that goes to the one bridge that leads across into Spain. It really is. It's very pretty. It's nice. It's a comfortable lifestyle. You can tell. The other thing I like about it is that it isn't urban. I like being outside of urban cities as much as I miss living in Prague. We lived in Prague for 5 years before moving to Portugal. I do like being away from urban cities where I can be in a property that has its own land and has, great, sort of natural views out over things, but you're close enough to Porto that, you can get into the city really quickly. It's only about an hour to Porto and it's all freeway.
Mhm.
So you can get into Porto quickly for all the sort of urban cultural things you want to do, get to the airport in Porto, whatever. And it's good food up there. It's a lot of really, really fresh seafood that's up there, a lot of fresh meats and things like that. There's a restaurant that I would go back to just for
Just for the
the short
restaurant.
ribs they had. It was called Canto de Lobo. I mean, they have the best short ribs I've had in the last 10 years easily. It's just fantastic restaurant, really small little place built in an old, building from the 1700s again with the stone walls and whatnot. Um, and the affordability. I mean, it really is a much more affordable lifestyle than, living in Porto or in Lisbon, or particularly down in the Algarve, which is getting really quite expensive these days because so many Americans are moving there, particularly the Californians who want to live a California lifestyle in Portugal. So for me, Camino is kind of that place just to get away from urban living. You don't have to live there, but if you just, if you come to Portugal and you're going to be staying in Portugal for more than, a month or two, and you're just sort of, want to spend time in the country, I would say you really do need to drive up to Camina. The drive is kind of pretty. You get to see what northern Portugal looks like. But the city itself is just a wonderful little place to, relax for even just a long weekend of just sort of walking around and eating and taking naps down at in a basement pool.
Right. Well, and I would say too, just for the record, that we think, collectively here at IL, and you're not the only person who's gone. We had Ronan was up there as well, our real estate expert, and you guys also think like it's a place that's on the up, right? So it's a place that to watch, that the prices are starting to go up, people are starting to find it, and it's a place you could get in early still. So Jeff, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it, and I look forward to visiting you in your house in Camino when you decide to go move up there.
I will have the gin suite available for you.
Thank you. Yes, we will appreciate that. All right. Thanks. I'll talk to you soon. I'm Jen Stevens for International Living.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave us a comment below letting us know what you think.